Let's get to Shawn Ryan. If you haven't seen the clip, I'm going to play some of it, not all of it. I love it. I don't know what immediate release means when you post a video. Basically, it's immediate release regardless. Shawn Ryan, at Shawn Ryan 762, immediate release. Congressman Dan Crenshaw threatens to sue Shawn Ryan. I don't ordinarily do it. I'm going to play this one at 1.5 because I think we could easily play it at 1.5. And
I want to address something.
We can easily play it at 1.5. And I mean, Shawn has a much slower cadence of speech than I do. And that's not a criticism. It might actually be a compliment. I could probably do good slowing down. But we're going to play it at 1.5 because we want to get to this and here. This is wild. And it goes back to something I said a while back, like whether or not you like it, when you're in certain positions, you no longer have the same luxuries and liberties that you once had when you were not in those positions. And when you're a congressman, when you're a member of government, DMing someone and saying, hey, man, I really didn't like what you said about me. Would you take it back? Or there might be consequences. I'll let Shawn say it in his own words.
Something directly with all of you who've supported the show and made it what it is today. On December 9th, 2025, I received a legal demand letter from lawyers representing Congressman Dan Crenshaw. They are threatening to sue me for defamation because of comments I made on my podcast about a message that he sent me. They want me to remove content, issue a public apology, and stop talking about him.
Does how nobody understands what the Streisand effect is? Like, if you're going to threaten to sue somebody, it's got to be like basic necessity, economic, reputational necessity, not because you think you're going to be able to bully certain people into silence, because you won't. All that you're going to do is get them and others talking about it. And, you know, by and large, unless it's a clear-cut, black and white legal demand of a clear-cut, morally unquestionable issue, you're not going to get people jumping on the side of the person saying, shut up and retract and issue an apology to me. You're going to get skepticism, and rightly so, especially when it's coming from people who are not particularly liked among both sides of the political aisle. I don't think most people like Dan Crenshaw anymore. I once upon a time thought very highly of him, and then he went ahead and opened his mouth and removed all doubt.
I'm not going to do any of that. Let me give you full context so you can judge for yourself. What I originally said a while back, I commented on my show about Congressman Crenshaw throwing an extremely expensive party and the fact that he seems to have become quite wealthy during his time in Congress. I raised questions about how a congressman making $174,000 a year can afford that kind of a lifestyle. These are legitimate questions. And to be honest, I didn't even mention Dan Crenshaw's name in that initial conversation. I just brought up the fact that he was having Steve Aoki, a major DJ, spin at his party.
Now, I'll pause it because by what it seems, Dan Crenshaw's net worth, let's see here. I mean, you trust it for what it's worth. 2018 open secret, sorry, it says 1.5 million to 3.3 million. So Dan Crenshaw's net worth varies by estimate. Open secrets showing a wide range of financial disclosures from 1.4 million to 3.3 of recent cycles, reflecting assets like real estate, stocks, potential income from sources, but precise figures are private and fluctuate with congressional salary. So we don't really know. One of the standard lines of attack is that everyone in government gets really rich on a salary of, 200,000, give or change.
And then, let's fast forward a couple years and they got Steve Aoki DJing their 40th birthday party. How does that happen?
I don't have firsthand experience in this. I have often questioned the same thing.
These are legitimate questions. Multiple news outlets have reported on concerns about congressional insider trading and members of Congress, including Congressman Crenshaw, actively trading stocks while having access to non-public information that affects those very stocks.
Now, I'm gonna pause it here. I don't know what Shawn Ryan's baseline is typically. Does he look a little scared? Like, this might be my own confession through projection. He looks a little rattled despite trying to feign not confidence, but defiance. So people said the same thing about Marjorie Taylor Greene. They might have made a factual mistake about how Marjorie Taylor Greene increased her wealth while in government, because it was not through insider trading, unless there's evidence to suggest it, which there isn't. It was actually from her father passing away and her inheriting the shares of his very successful construction company. So it's not everybody who goes in there poor on $180,000 a year makes tens of millions of dollars. Not everybody's Nancy Pelosi. Dan Crenshaw might not be Nancy Pelosi here, but my goodness, he's not doing himself any favors either.
I'm not the only person asking these questions, but apparently I'm the one that got under Dan's skin. After I made those comments, Congressman Crenshaw sent me an Instagram message. I'm going to publish the actual screenshot so you can see for yourself right here. Here's what it says. Hey, Shawn, you have the ability to contact your fellow team guy if you've got a problem with me or have questions about how I'm getting rich. Some of my boys at 6 told me about your indirect swipe at me. From the comment you made, it sounds like you have some beliefs that are based on trendy narratives instead of facts. Now, let me be clear about what I saw when I read that message. A sitting United States congressman who happens to be a former Navy SEAL sent me a message saying, my boys at 6 told me about my criticism of him. My boys at 6. That means SEAL Team 6, Development Group, the most elite special operations unit in the United States military and arguably the world.
We can pause it there. I'll pause it there, and then we're going to get into this. If you receive a DM from a sitting member of government, first of all, Crenshaw's on Instagram. I love it how they go, hey, at least he actually DMs people on Instagram. Hey, Shawn, you have the ability to contact your fellow team guy if you've got a problem. You got a problem with me? You got any questions about how I'm getting rich? Some of my boys at 6. I mean, maybe he meant, KPMG 6, the radio station. I don't know if that's a real station. Some of my boys at 6 told me about your indirect swipe at me from the comment you made. It sounds like you have some beliefs that are based on trendy narratives instead of facts. I guess I'll stop it there. Let's take a brief pause from this video for a word from our sponsor, The Wellness Company. What if the sore throat and fever that hit you overnight didn't mean you had to cancel a family trip, miss work, or waste hours at urgent care? Instead, you could just open your medical emergency kit from The Wellness Company, match your symptoms to the doctor-recommended guide, and start treatment immediately. This is not a first aid kit. It is a mini urgent care right at your fingertips. Inside, you will find 8 core prescriptions to treat over 30 conditions like COVID, strep throat, pneumonia, urinary tract infections, and more. No more waiting rooms or pharmacies. Modernize medicine right now when you need it. Ordering is simple. At checkout, complete a short intake form. A licensed doctor will review, fill your scripts, and preventative peace of mind arrives at your door in a week. No one wants to get sick during the holidays. Be prepared. Save yourself some time and money. The medical emergency kit puts urgent care in your hands. Order your kit right now by heading to twc.health/Viva. Promo code VIVA for your discount and free shipping. Don't let illness catch you off guard. Order your kit now by heading over to twc.health/Viva. Promo code VIVA will get you your discount and free shipping. Thank you, The Wellness Company, for sponsoring this video. And now back to the video. Would you be intimidated if a member of government sent you that? Even if you didn't make any reference to my boys at 6. When Chuck Schumer said, the intelligence community has 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you, and it's really not smart of Trump to go after them. If you don't take that like a threat, I won't say you have thicker skin. I'll say you're dumb. If you don't take that as the threat that it's clearly intended to be, you are simply stupid. You're a sitting duck who is susceptible of not knowing what's coming before it comes. When Dan Crenshaw comes in and says, hey, I hear you've been talking about me, big boy. So he doesn't even have to say his boys at 6. Some of my boys, unless he's talking about his kids, told me you've been talking about me, and I don't really like what you're saying. And so they are basically asking him to issue a retraction, issue a demand, basically an apology and a retraction, which Shawn Ryan is not going to do. But in true form to not the Mandela effect, the Streisand effect, it did remind me of something that even I thought was particularly interesting at the time. Once upon a time, Crenshaw was on a show complaining about the fact that he didn't even have enough money to invest in the market. Here, look at this. Is this it? We're going to play this one just to refresh everybody's memory, because I did a commentary on this at the time. I don't get any DMs, but I don't check my DMs on Instagram anyhow. So, Crenshaw, if you want to reach me, have your people DM me on Twitter. Or join us at vivabarneslaw.locals.com, where even the trolls have their voice, so long as they pay the toll. This is what happened at the back in the day. This is Nancy Pelosi stock tracker at Pelosi tracker. Just in, Dan Crenshaw's Meta just crushed earnings again. He's now up 495% on his Meta buy from 2022, making it one of the best political stock trades we've ever seen. But never forget his fiery response on a congressional stock trading ban. Now, I will say this not to cover my own ass, just because I don't believe, I trust but verify. I don't know if what Nancy Pelosi's stock tracker is saying in this tweet if it's accurate. What I do distinctly remember was Dan Crenshaw's "methinks the lady doth protest too much" response when asked about legislation that would seek to prevent congressmen and women from insider trading. Look at this.
Vote for a ban on Congress members trading stocks?
Yeah, I mean, this is like number 1,000 on my priority list of things to care about. This is
do I pause and highlight all of the deceptive behavior here? This is so stupid. Why do I even bother answering it? Now I'm going to go into a 2-minute tirade about it.
one of those stupid things that I've been dragged through the mud on. You know how much fucking money I've ever had in the stock market? About $20,000. And yet I've been dragged through the mud on this as if like there's some insider trading. I just sent a letter to Fox News, a threatening letter from my lawyers, threatening them with defamation because Jesse Waters had basically insinuated that I was insider trading. Of course.
So pattern of conduct now. I had to send a threatening letter to Fox News, and we will question whether or not that DM on Instagram was intended to be threatening, whether Shawn Ryan was right in his perception of having felt threatened by that DM. We got an admission of MO. I don't know what Crenshaw invests in the market. One thing I can tell you is that if I'm examining Dan Crenshaw, if he's a defendant or a party to a lawsuit and I'm the lawyer, I was like, it says, you know how much fucking money I have in the market, maybe $20,000. I was like, all right, good. Do you have a spouse? How much money does your spouse have in the market? Do you have a brother? Do you have anybody who could potentially, for and on your own behalf? I'm not suggesting it's the case, but when I hear someone say categorically, I've got no money in the market, well, that's also not only what the law was going to pertain to restricting back in the day. It was going to pertain to insider trading as relates to giving tips to friends and family, having people beneficially own stocks for and on your behalf. So when someone says something that is not an entirety of an eliminating answer, I would have had follow-up questions. Okay, you have 20,000 in the market. That's good. How much does your wife have? How much do your kids have? How much do your parents have? How much do brothers and sisters have? Do you have any stockbrokers? Does anybody else beneficially, potentially, for and on your behalf hold? Whatever. Let's continue.
It's not true. You'd be more surprised how much little information we have. This is one of those bills that, like, of course, yeah, people support it. Yeah, sure, okay. Who cares? Because I barely have anything in the market anyway.
I barely have anything in the market anyway. Second time. It's such a stupid question. We're now entering 1 minute of an answer, which involved mentioning how he sent threatening letters to Jesse Waters at Fox News for insinuating. What were they insinuating?
Are there a couple cases like wherein Nancy Pelosi has some very suspicious timing of her trades? Yeah, that has happened. But nobody else can point any other examples out.
Oh, that's not true.
So sure, yeah, why not? Don't let us trade stocks. How about we'll just keep whipping ourselves. How about we don't make any money either?
You see this? Deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. Whip us. How about we don't make it? Well, no one suggested you not get paid. Maybe people suggest, getting paid $200,000 a year for working one third of the year, all the benefits on earth, all of the deductible stuff on earth. You got it pretty good. And if you want to make $1 million a year, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't become a congressman and then bitch about the fact that you can't invest with insider knowledge and that you don't make enough money. Don't do it. Dan, I'll tell Dan a moral of the story after we finish this. Let's let this play out.
Cut our paychecks. We haven't gotten a pay raise since 2008, even a COLA increase. So, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's make Congress a place where only the millionaires can actually afford to do the job. This is a wonderful idea. Let's just keep doing that, and then some it's always some member, right, who senses the populist energy.
God forbid.
And then mirrors it.
God forbid.
Believing that this is what's going to help me connect with the people. Because what do the people want? Well, they want an easy button.
You know what the people want? They don't want corruption in government. They want honesty and transparency out of government. They want to see the people thrive and not the government thrive. And not the government take their hard-earned tax dollars, siphon it out to foreign conflict where it gets pilfered by corrupt foreign governments. That's what they want to see, Dan. If you're honest about it, they don't want to see congressmen and women living in their luxury, living in their ideological silo of DC, while Americans, veterans live on the street, Americans die of drug overdoses, while Americans are told to live with illegals, open borders, drug addiction, homelessness, violence on the subways. They want a country that functions and not a government that keeps getting fatter and fatter every year.
Problems will be solved if there's no stock trading. All my problems will be solved if there's term limits. Yeah, but if you think about any of these things for 5 whole minutes, you might quickly come to a different conclusion. Now, what I vote for? Yeah, sure. Who cares? Who cares? Like it doesn't matter to me because I don't have any fucking money to put in the stock market.
What an angry tirade of a response. 2.5 minutes or 2 minutes and 10 seconds for someone who doesn't care. Cut your paycheck. Nobody's suggesting that. And my father brought us up. He's still alive, so this is not an anecdote. My father, but he told, hey, if you want to be rich, there's nothing wrong with that. But then don't become a school teacher. Nothing wrong with being a school teacher either. But don't expect to get rich and then go become a school teacher. Don't expect to get rich and become a cop. And if you become a cop and you want to get rich, you might see what some of those cops do in order to get rich beyond the capacity of the employment that they chose. You want to be rich and you want to make millions and millions of dollars, you go into private enterprise, do it legally, more power to you, Godspeed. You want to get rich, don't bitch and moan about not being able to get rich off $180,000 a year when you choose to serve country by going into government. And everything in that response seems to, at least in my humble view, lend credibility to Shawn Ryan's reaction to that DM from Dan Crenshaw.
Instead of facts. Now, let me be clear about what I saw when I read that message. A sitting United States congressman who happens to be a former Navy SEAL sent me a message saying, my boys at 6 told me about my criticism of him. My boys at 6. That means SEAL Team 6, Development Group, the most elite special operations unit in the United States military and arguably the world. When I received that message, in the context of me criticizing him, I interpreted it as threatening. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe he just meant that some guys he used to work with told him about my comments and he wanted to have a friendly chat. But that's not how it read to me, and I said so on my podcast. Now, here's a clip of Congressman Dan Crenshaw literally saying if he ever meets Tucker Carlson, he will fucking kill him.
Have you ever met Tucker?
I wouldn't take that as a threat. That's a figure of speech, but
so I'm just
not
curious,
joking.
What would you think if Congressman Dan Crenshaw sent you a message saying his boys at 6 after he threatened to kill Tucker Carlson? Now his lawyers are claiming that my interpretation of his message is defamation. They say I accused him of threatening me with assault, which is a crime, and that I need to publicly apologize and remove the content from my show. Here's my response. No. I'm publishing their full demand letter along with my lawyer's response so that you can read both and decide for yourself.
my answer would have been fuck off. Not no, but Shawn is much more polite and, success leaves clues.
Whether my interpretation was unreasonable. This isn't really about whether I misunderstood a message. This is about whether a sitting member of Congress can use the threat of an expensive litigation to silence criticism. I asked questions about Congressman Crenshaw as well. Those questions are fair game.
Now, where's the letter? I just want to show you the letter. I think it's at the end. Oh, maybe you didn't publish it here. We're not going to go any further. That's all you need. Let me send you that tweet so you can put it on blast. Can you imagine someone saying your interpretation of what occurred is defamatory? My interpretation of what occurred is by definition an interpretation, which means it's by definition and legal matter of fact, my opinion. And if you don't like my opinion and you disagree with my opinion, you can go suck a big fat lemon. Now, I appreciate the legal distinction. You can't say, it is my opinion that you are a pedophile, because what you are doing is cloaking a defamatory per se statement of fact as an opinion. You're making an opinion to a statement of fact. It is my opinion that O.J. Simpson is a murderer. It is my opinion that O.J. Simpson was a murderer and he's dead. He can't sue for defamation. But there are cases where cloaking your opinion, cloaking a statement of fact and a defamatory one as a statement of opinion could nonetheless be actionable. But saying I took that as intimidation and as a threat, A, is a matter of opinion, and B, is a wholly justified matter of opinion. Now, I saw Ginger Ninja over on Rumble who says, see, I can't, how do I want to get that? Don't move the screen. I want to move the screen. Here we go. Ginger Ninja says, Shawn always looks a little different when he talks to the camera versus conducting an interview, but I think he looks pissed. My boys at 6 equals my highly trained goons are watching you. And I agree. So it'll be fun if they sue. I mean, it won't be fun to get sued. People don't understand this. Not only do you have to be legally correct to sue, unless you're just a raging psychopath who revels in the stress of litigation and the infliction of misery on others, even if you are right, even if you have a strong chance of success, you've got to think long and hard before suing anybody. It's a two-way street. People seem to think you sue, you get to do whatever you want. No, it's a two-way street. And oftentimes everybody ends up looking ugly in litigation, but oftentimes the person who initially thought the lawsuit was a great idea ends up looking even uglier. So Shawn, I happen to think you're 1000% right. I'm curious to see where this goes. I don't wish that you should get sued. But from what I understand now, based on the evidence that is publicly available to us now, and based on a past admitted course of conduct and modus operandi by Dan Crenshaw, I think Shawn is 1000% right. Crenshaw knew exactly what he was doing when he sent that private DM, and it is not okay for sitting members of government to DM influential commentators in a threatening, intimidating manner to try to get them to be silent in their critique. What else is going on, people?